You brought it up earlier, but the New World Order, what's sort of your vision of it? And I guess more importantly, how could the US and US military thrive within that, not just survive?
Yeah. The United States, in my opinion, made one of the single biggest foreign policy blunders of the 20th century when the Berlin Wall came down. We announced that we had won the Cold War. No, we didn't. The Soviet Union dropped out of the game because they ran out of the will and the resources to stay in the game. Just like the analogy I gave some time ago, when Circuit City went bankrupt and dropped out of the game, Best Buy didn't win anything. They didn't win the game of business. What ended up happening was the game changed and the competition changed. It became Amazon, and Best Buy had to adapt for a new world order. Well, it's the same for the United States. The Soviet Union went bankrupt. The Soviet Union dropped out of the game, could no longer afford, nor did their people have the will to stay in this game. We falsely declared victory and then acted like victors. And we imposed our will on the world for about 11 years. And what always happens in an infinite game is new players will emerge. New players join the game. It's what always happens. Now, if you consider the Cold War existed on three tensions. There was a nuclear tension, the two largest nuclear powers in the world, the United States and the Soviet Union. There's an ideological tension, both ideological exporters looking for customers, Soviet-style communism versus democracy and capitalism. And there was an economic tension. The United States and Soviet Union were the two largest economies in the world. Not coincidentally, those things overlap with life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The only three things for which we will bear any burden and pay any price, because it's existential. Conveniently, all three of those tensions existed in a single country called the Soviet Union. So it was very easy for us to perceive the existential threat, the external existential threat, because it was over there. And the sister forces in the military, the IC, they fought like cats and dogs, just like they fight now. But at the end of the day, they could all come to agreement when they faced that existential threat and say, not that, and they could come together and align their efforts. When the Soviet Union went away, we continued to act as if, and we didn't really adapt our military for the New World Order. And new players emerged. So filling the nuclear tension was North Korea, maybe Pakistan, maybe Iran, right? Filling the ideological tension, Soviet-style communism was replaced by by religious extremism. It's a philosophy, it's an ideology looking for customers. And the economic tension was largely replaced by China. And Russia is flirting with all of them. And so our existential threat is alive and well in Cold War 2.0, but it's much harder for us to perceive because it's no longer conveniently co-located in a single nation. It's dispersed around the world. So we are sitting here back in our, in the five-sided building, debating where we should put our resources. North Korea is the number one threat. It's the Pacific theater, it's China, it's extremism. We don't get to choose. It's not one or, it's all. And the other problem is because we don't perceive an existential threat, because no one of them presents an existential threat. I mean, yes, nuclear war for sure, but it's not something we feel on a regular basis. Because we don't perceive a single nation as offering as an existential threat, we start looking inwards. And this happens in empires where when they start to do really, really well, they start looking inwards because they don't see they lose sight of the external existential threat, and they start to see each other. So we now live in a nation where you have two political parties who both care about the country, but accuse the other of being traitorous or not caring about the nation or being unpatriotic. And so we now perceive each other as an existential threat to our own nation, while all the time our real adversaries are getting stronger and stronger and stronger and exploiting that. And this is really dangerous. By the way, this is how the Roman Empire came down. Their balance of power was Carthage. Carthage was flattened after a 50-year debate on the Roman Senate whether they should flatten Carthage. They flattened Carthage, and Rome went into a steep decline due to infighting. It's a repeating pattern. And so I think we have to understand that the Cold War is alive and well, but it's Cold War 2.0. And our DoD is almost entirely formed and built for only the Cold War. I mean, we were isolationists prior to World War II. And when we came out of World War II, we organized our entire military operation, our entire military apparatus for one kind of warfare, the Soviet Union and Cold War and all the proxy wars that existed. And we are just not built for the New World Order. And we wasted a bunch of years not adapting for things. And so we're seeing the effect. We're seeing how slow it is for us to, for example, deploy new technology into the military. From the time we requisition it, 20 years later, we'll deploy it. China can do it in 8. And so these are new challenges that we're not organized for. So I think we have to understand that we're in Cold War 2.0. We have to understand that the existential threat we face is real, but much more difficult to discern. And by the way, for our enemies, much easier, because for them, every single one of them, their existential threat is right here. So it's really easy for them to align their forces against us, much more difficult for us to align ours against theirs. So I think we have to come to terms with the fact that we're still in the Cold War, and it's Cold War 2.0. The only hot war versus Cold War, you can fight with, like the Army and the Marine Corps are really good at hot war, right? Because you can't keep an army in a nation forever. I mean, like it's not sustainable, and the nation won't want it. But Cold War is fought with, it's fought with SOF, it's fought with RPA, it's fought with Air Force, it's fought with Navy. You know, it's applying pressure. But SOF are one of the things that you can use very easily in Cold War.